If you're watching this, stay alive and have hope. You are the resistance. I kid. That's an homage to John Connor, Terminator, one of the most fantastic series, in my humble opinion. Though if you talk to people, they might tell you I'm not so humble. And sometimes they're not necessarily wrong. I like to stand firmly and educate myself into why I feel and believe the way I do. Question things, pros, it, good, bad, right, wrong, 27 and 1,000 types of ways. I don't know why intrinsically I've always said the number 27, and I need to work on that to maybe pick a different number. And yes, be the number 42 a la Douglas Adams. So we'll see. But before I get too far into it, narcissism, amongst other things, part 2, we're going to follow a vein. It's like I've been known for saying lives, and it has been. Adversity, transitions, all sorts of things. And I am one who, in pain, in grief, etc., I choose to put myself out for others, if that makes sense. Like, feel my feelings, of course, privately, and not that, I don't know, in regards to authenticity and what have you, we all mask to a certain extent, I think, and language. I've also been known to say, as the Taoists say, the moment that we open our mouths to speak, we lie. And at some point I will possibly unpack things, but that's even part of the struggle. Like the narcissism, you're going to take from it what you will take. I know I mentioned in another video a while back that I had been interested in pursuing a career in academia, and it was only in getting into higher learning and understanding my place of privilege to even be able to have access to that, and how it was just for a buck, and even just the staunch ego and ignorance and closed-mindedness, honestly, of incorporating new ideas and needing the ramifications. Fun fact, if you're looking to get any sort of doctorate, master's, just higher education, you need to successfully defend a thesis. So essentially, because a bunch of old people, the experts who have spent the time saying that they're the experts, say they're the experts, you have to successfully defend that. And ironically enough, for me, in the pursuit of academia, because we're always growing and evolving and expanding, highlighted the almost instantaneous idiocy and short-sightedness. And I say that with love, because we'll probably unpack that at some point too. It is wild as I continue to walk this earth, not necessarily wanting to, I don't know, it's probably karma. I'm going to go sideways for a second. I was once the kind of person to where, let's say that I caught you talking to your friend, right? And you were like, oh my gosh, shut up. And let's say maybe you meant it like, no way. Or let's say you literally like, oh my God, shut up. Like, stop. I need a minute. I might still come in, well-meaning, mind you, no actual judgments, even though I was perceived as judgmental, talk for another day, because it's not like I was calling the moral police or saying, eat a Tide Pod, you have no value to humanity. Nothing like that, mind you, but it's strange how accountability is just you don't love me, you're awful. Talk for another day. Again, how we manifest and purge our pain. I'm going to be 5,000% honest with you. I have been dipping the sauce a bit. Cheers. But I'm of legal age, so I don't need to put any sort of warnings on this video unless I start swearing up a storm. I'll try not to. Not that I think it's bad, because in truth, psychology will tell you people that swear are actually more honest and more sure of themselves. And if they use it in the correct context, they're actually content, same, interchangeable. They're probably more intelligent as well. So cheers to that. And, cheers to you, Aunt Joey. May your legacy live on forever, even if I get hit by a bus tomorrow. Gotta laugh, not to cry. And then, of course, I lost my point and all that because I'm a total jackalope, right? But even just the sensitivities of language and me coming across as like the moral or language police when trying to exemplify a point, demonstrate, what have you. Language is interesting. I studied language. I studied communications. Again, academia. And then after deciding how ridiculous it was, the way that we go about it, the ego, just the monetary, the neuroses, and just psychosis, psychology was an interest as well, as was the philosophy, in case you're interested. My point with that is that I decided I wanted to help people think, just get them to think, because that is the actually most foundational sense of assurity, what have you. So, wanted to teach, honestly, and then was like, I feel gross going about this, making money, and well, okay, teachers don't necessarily get paid enough, which is gross. When we unpack how I think celebrity culture is gross because people are paying people to act like they're better than them instead of dwindling those resources into cultivating their own ability to craft. 40 years old, learned the guitar a year ago, starting to work on it. Not saying I'll ever be a professional guitarist, mind you, but again, to elevate people on these pedestals, and then you look at the content of character of the people, i.e., not to throw out any pop punk bands that are comparable in age or anything. As much as I grew up with them and I loved them, as I've gotten older, and who knows, maybe it's a female thing, but as I've continued to grow and evolve and want to give back more to the world and think about the legacy and what will be left behind perhaps when I'm not here, I can't help find it all so superficial and fickle and shallow when these people have so much more than everybody else. And then they come back and they need more. And they do it for their fans and they love them. And narcissism, because if you love them, why are you charging them? And why aren't you then, or maybe giving back to them, random lotteries, etc., paying their rent to anyone who buys a ticket for your show? You automatically give them a $25 gift card for gas for coming out. I don't know. Call me crazy. I just feel like if you were really doing it for your fans and not to get your own ego stroked, you'd be doing it a different way. Who am I? No one. Everyone. That's the best part. I used to think I was going to write like the best novel. I was going to change the world. I needed to make a mark. And then I actually got a taste of that when I published an article on Elephant Journal. And it was on narcissism and how I just wanted to call people in lovingly to just hold a point of perspective and to think that if you were to deduce someone as a narcissist, you yourself were kind of stepping into that role and taking on that mantle. Because again, what's more narcissistic than saying, well, my reality is the most reality of all the realities, and forget this other person, they don't matter, because my reality is the only one, and I need you to validate my reality. This is not to minimize anybody's pain or the suffering that we all incur as we as people on this spectrum of traits and attributes encompass. It's just to maybe perhaps pose a different frame of mind and just some food for thought and some consideration, because I'm feeling some things, man, and I'm grateful for it, to be honest with you. And it's my own fault. I'm not looking for sympathy or pity, but my new kink, as I've mentioned in another video, is like commenting on YouTube videos, because I don't think a lot of people realize, as much as we as a society would say that we're not okay with bullying, we're not okay with being mean, etc., how quickly, when we are presented with an opinion or a point of view or an experience that we can't reconcile or we can't understand, we are so quick to just be like, no, that's wrong. My way's more better. I'm not going to split hairs. I think about things. If it's not apparent by the way I'm talking to you, I think about things a lot. And then I think some more. And then I flip it around, and then I think some more. And it's so easy for me to be like, you know nothing, Jon Snow, if you're familiar with the reference. And then I calm myself down, because I remember that even if I'm potentially hearing something like a thought that I've already had, for example, I'm hearing it from somebody else. And their perspective, their point of view, that offers more education. So it gets tricky. Let's say their point of view is what I observe as short-sighted, ignorant, hateful, etc. How am I going to introduce that topic? And again, that's where the narcissism comes in. And essentially, I speak to this because I'm starting to think that, ironically enough, like labels, identities, we need to start focusing on everything as a spectrum. I'm going to wet my palate for just a little bit. So I had lost my train of thought in my previous video. I went back and watched it, and I only watched it once because it's strange to kind of watch yourself, and I'm trying to be organic and just, I don't even want to say video journaling, but just peopling with people, because people in different ways, and I sometimes get positive reactions from random weirdos. Honestly, look, if we're gonna keep it a buck, maybe you shouldn't listen to anything that I say, because I get better reception from people that I align with, not necessarily consistently on a regular basis, than other people that I align with the exception of a few of my few friends. Shout outs to you. My best friend is an INFJ. Like I am, Myers-Briggs personality type, and honestly, a special shout out to you, my Pisces. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Because I wasn't necessarily going to post. I struggle in certain dynamics that I have experienced a lot of times due to just the ego journey, etc. I've been perhaps perceived as like narcissistic or Dunning-Kruger effect, as in thinking I'm more intelligent or more superior. I believe myself smarter on something than what I can be. And it's incredibly hurtful, to be completely honest with you, because I don't. I think that I know next to nothing. I think I'm just a huge nerd and I'm curious. But what I do think is also a truth that sort of coincides is that a lot of people aren't necessarily so curious, and they're okay with just numbing with different pursuits. Well, we say okay, but let's look at depression and coping mechanisms and the things that we focus our energies on. So, again, okay. To be clear, I probably come across nuttier than squirrel poo more often than not, but I don't know, I'm mostly happy. And even when I suffer, I can come back to joy pretty quickly. Funnily enough, by not externalizing on my own suffering and trying to see how I can be of benefit or value to people that maybe perhaps are suffering more than I am. And it's tricky, right? Because these weird moral judgments excuse me. Before I go too sideways, because I've gone all over the place, going back to the narcissism video that I posted the first time, I ended on a really fun little story where I was talking about my little merman that popped up on the dock. And I do want to set the stage. So I'm hiking, and I'm walking through a wilderness path, okay? And there is a dock along this trail, and there's a lake, but I'm not by the beachfront. I'm like good into the woods, right? But I am at the dock point. And so our friend, if you have seen the previous video, you're not necessarily missing much because I didn't build the story, and I'm glad you're here anyway. But just to kind of recreate, he pops up and is just like, hey, I beat you to the dock, right? Sir? What? And to be clear, I did sort of slightly veer towards the dock. I think I even posted at one point a story, like a post in my community of a picture of a dragonfly, which was me sitting on the dock, and that is a story for another day, because all of the dragonflies came and swarmed around. It was fantastic. But I did kind of detour, but I peeped, as the kids would say, or I noticed things there. So I was like, nope. And to be clear, I'm not antisocial. I love people. In fact, randomly enough, I found out I love people. I love having random conversations. I love just engaging. I love the opportunity to just be real and be present with people. I do it weirdly, mind you, because I don't necessarily want to talk about the weather. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But I feel like we're all starving for connections. I'm just like, hey, are you having a good day? And then I build on it, and we don't need to talk about it because it's necessarily about me, though I have to kind of mention me because it's how we relate. Narcissism, talk for another day. So I go to this dock, I see shoes, I see a wallet. I'm like, nope, I'm good. So I start walking as he literally is like pulling up, and I'm just like, ugh, I'm a person of faith. So I'm like, well, this is clearly, it's part of my karma. This is part of my design. I'm going to go ahead and engage with this person. Because again, while I'm a person of faith, I'm also a person of discernment. I don't think that you should necessarily drink from every cup offered to you because you could be poisoned. I don't say yes to every opportunity because it might not be good for you. On that note. So he pops up and I'm like, it's public enough. I don't think this is going to be an episode of Criminal Minds or whatnot, or even if it is, hell, it's public enough. So, and honestly, if all else fails, I wasn't going down without a fight. I won't go down without a fight no matter what. So I should probably be clear about that one. Practicing Buddhist amongst other things. But again, doesn't mean I'm going down without a fight. So, well, it's not like I thought I could take him or anything, because he's a big dude. I need to be clear. I've got, like, the Chihuahua syndrome. Not that you can necessarily tell by build, and I'm not something that I'm going to be like, look at my physique. But I think I'm, like, 5'5", like, freaking 130 pounds. Maybe 135 at this point. I've been eating really good, if I'm being completely honest with you. So I like to think that I'm, like, super big and bad, right? Because I'll work out. No. In my head, that was actually a workout. I wasn't necessarily in a fear place. I'll let Donnie Dark go. I wasn't coming from the fear spectrum. So I'm like, yeah, I can talk to this guy. And I do mean that. Like, as just a human pod on this planet, like, you're all my brothers and sisters. I will talk to anybody for at least a minute until I'm like, I'm not feeling safe here, so I'm gonna go. So he pops up like a merman, and he's just like, yeah, beach of the spot, huh? And I'm like, yeah. But he's like, I forget what he says now at this point, enough time has passed, but he said something that was kind of slightly off, as you will, just like, don't necessarily trust people. It was just kind of something along that vein. And I know you might be like, why does that seem weird? Well, because if you don't necessarily trust people, sir, why are you initiating a conversation? I have questions, but whatever. I'm just like, yeah, I get it. So then he starts walking with me. And then just to kind of recap, because I've already spent so much time introducing this, it's weird. I didn't have a name or intention, but it's getting there, I guess, as it's meant to. We're walking, and I think I mentioned in my last video, at certain points he's just handing me different things. Like, he's just like, oh, because again, he hops out of the water. So it's like, oh, stop, put my shoe on. Here, can you hold my wallet? Walk. Here, put my shoe on. Will you hold this while I put my shirt on? So we finally make it around the trail. And to be clear, yes, I'm fawning. And this is something that I don't think a lot of men understand. I know that you all want to think you're safe spaces, and that is fantastic, and please continue to work on that. We're definitely going to unpack that at some point, men. And I don't hate men. In fact, unfortunately, I love men a little bit too much, if I'm being honest with you. But I have noticed in times of conflict when perhaps men are feeling small or like their needs aren't met, sometimes they need to make a woman feel wrong or like she's stupid or just put her in her place. 1,000,001 other things. And I guess I would just say, I can't know, but if you actually respect women, then why is this a thing? Why aren't you trying to understand us? Talk for another day, to be clear, because there's lots of psychology. Totally nerd out on it. Sometimes I speak too fast. And because I'm animated, I worry that you guys think that I might be drunk. Because I did mention I've been sipping the sauce a little bit. But what I need to be clear is because I'm a weenie, it's watered down wine. But I needed to slow down my speech so you understand. And then that's kind of terrifying, right? Because this is me sipping the sauce. And then I think they sauce. And then I just think some more. And then it gets weird. And funnily enough, I have been pegged as being a thief of joy in certain comment feeds. But if you were to run into me in the 3D, I could actually be really fun to party with. But also sometimes I drink a little bit and in healing with my pain, think things and talk about things. And in all honesty, it's the only time that I'm probably going to have for a moment. and it was important. So I think so. Homeboy and I are walking, and he even at one point is like, we come to the bathrooms on this trail, and he's like, "Would you mind holding my stuff?" He's like, "Here, take my binoculars. They're super awesome if you want to check it out." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And he goes to the bathroom. And this is where essentially all of my talks of discernment slightly go out the window, but not really, because it's not necessarily like I had my glasses on, and I do wear contacts too sometimes. So it's not like I'm putting the binoculars to my eyes and like letting them touch my skin. But it's only as I'm holding the binoculars. And to be clear, there's a lot of weirdness kind of as I see it anyway, and then I'm like, but I'm weird. Maybe I'm making it real weird. But it's only when I'm like looking through his binoculars and I'm like, girl, technically you're kind of dumb. Because if he were, and again, my open heart, my open spirit, right? I'm like, if he were a kidnapper, any of this was like roofied or had DMSO and anything that could soak through your skin, you're about 30 seconds away from passing out in front of everybody. And then God love me, I swear to you, I'm just kind of like, well, then I send a prayer to all of the pantheons that I believe in, and I'm like, well, I'm in a public place, so I don't think that's the case, but what's up? So then, to be clear, because I'm also not dumb, I put his binoculars, I put all of his stuff that I was holding while he was in the bathroom on top of the lid of a trash can as I use my last little bit of remaining water to kind of wash my hands and rinse everything off, wipe my face on the off chance. Because again, we want to always operate under the assumption that everyone is fantastic, but the bird doesn't trust that the branch that it lands on is going to be secure. It trusts that if it breaks, its little wings are going to get it aflutter. So I am absolutely all day long an advocate of self-sufficiency. So I was like, let me just act accordingly. So we keep walking back to the trail. Nothing weird happens. I don't get all woozy. And we make it back to our vehicles. He's like, oh, it's been so great. We should exchange numbers. And I'm like, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, what are you up to? And I'm like, I'm about to go to Bible study. And I laugh because I realize this sounds corny, but my faith is very, very important to me. I love God. I love Jesus. I love so many aspects of that. But I don't care for organized religion, and I don't care for the hate and the agendization. And also a talk for another day, but by all means, feel free to check out the sermons of William Donahue, who was fantastic. And before his times, when we even had metaphysical pastors and what have you, just chef's kiss. So my faith is incredibly important to me. The teachings and gospels of Jesus Christ are incredibly important to me. But Matthew 23, woe to you Pharisees. I feel like a lot of the people that claim to be of faith don't necessarily demonstrate their faith. I try to live my faith by example. And so sometimes those people and I, we butt heads. Oh, and then it gets complicated when I meet people like the sons of... Oh, I can't even speak on it now because I don't want to actually condemn any sort of religious organization, but certain institutions where people of color have seen me out with maybe people of pale persuasions and said that that's like race traders and talks for other days. Things get weird. People get so weird in the guise of religion, which I guess is why I have a problem with organized religion, but I'm a person of faith, as in God is love, as in atheist, agnostic. Call it Sky Daddy, call it whatever you need to. It's gonna sound so strange and cringe, and I don't mean it that way, but like God will touch your influence, like God source creator will touch you as it needs to. I understand how this is sounding. Please, like how Jesus was known to speak in parables, please interpret that not literally. Not literally. It sounds very forceful and aggressive, I know. And at certain times, to be completely honest with you, in my faith, I was not as close and connected, if that makes sense, to God's source, what have you. So it was very easy to feel shame, anger, etc. But I'll say this. I've actually, and I would lovingly, I don't even want to say challenge you, to any of you non-believers, which honestly, and I don't condemn you for this, because truly, I don't cite sources because, again, academia, my problem with it. That's part of the lie. You need to interpret from this what you need to interpret, which, funnily enough, going full cycles back to the religion thing, is that you need to apply your own interpretations. Jesus is very clear. The light of the world is within you. And talk for another day, because back to the freaking story. I'm getting so good at this. Ugh, I tell you, ADHD, what have you. I'm not even choosing to medicate with focus and behavioral corrections and discipline. All things are possible. Let me be a testament to that. So, back to our little friend. Should we blah blah blah? The reason I got onto the godly gay stuff, or I shouldn't say gay, but the super gay joyful for God stuff, was because he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I got Bible study. So, and if you can't tell by my weird little ecstasy, my ecstatic pronunciations, yeah, I get pretty hyped about that, because I'm a nerd, amongst so many other things. I was like, I have Bible study, and he's like, yeah, well, that's cool. I'd love to read the Bible with you sometime. Okay, sir, bro. Show again, though. Now, to be clear, it's not that I anticipated anything. What have you, like, I want to read the Bible. I want to talk about Jesus. You bet. So we exchanged phone numbers. Because, again, drinking the silly girl juice. I'm like, worst case scenario, I can block him. And he hands me something else. And this is where it all comes relevant, to be clear. You folks might just be like, man, this girl is manic and insane and she ain't keeping it together. But that's the fun part, right? I tie it all back together. It's like I'm building a spider web, and whoop! Sometimes I've got to be completely clear that threads get caught in the wind. Now it's not one of those times. So he goes to get his notebook and he hands me something else. And he's like, you are just the sweetest thing. I keep handing you these things to see if you're polite and you're going to take them. And you do. And so, without missing a beat, because I'm not going to say that I'm not sweet, but because of how all of this can present and represent, without missing a beat, I say, that's really interesting. Because psychology says that predators and psychos love to test people. And they will then decide if they're good victim potential based on their helpfulness. And I may still took my phone number. I think he reached out to me at one point. I don't know. Somebody kept calling me, and every time I would try to talk, they would not say anything. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I've seen that movie Dragonfly. Is this like some weird, I can't think of the acronym right now, but some weird deceased spirit trying to contact me? Block. So either way, and I'm not necessarily upset about it, to be honest with you. And I haven't necessarily gone to that trail again on the off chance I see him. And it's not that I wouldn't have talked to him, because, clearly, who knows? I was willing to engage. And sorry if that was oversharing, but it was just in the weird narcissism. It had me thinking of that. And I can't remember the original point of that and sharing it with you, to be completely honest with you. But I wanted to complete the story of all those tales, because cliffhangers suck, right? I know there's nothing like a good to be continued episode. And I truly, I don't remember, and I apologize for that. But in regards to narcissism, we're definitely, I would like to segue into just POV and point of view. Well, obviously, isn't that what POV is? Point of view. I tell you what, I got my gold star in redundancy. Just perception and narcissism. It was brought to my attention that when you click on people's pictures, you can see their comments. So, I'll take ownership. Bless you for checking in, giving this a whirl. If ever you're so inclined, you can sort of see the talking when there is no inherent tone applied, me in front of a camera, and you can see how it comes across. And I will take full responsibility. I understand that sometimes it can come across a bit harsh, cutting, 1,000,001 other things. And I don't mean this in an ultimate gaslight way, but as someone who has studied a lot of psychology and who has themselves experienced a lot of trauma, I think that the way that we view empathy these days is just insane. Just the echo chambers, the maladaptive, as in unhealthy coping mechanisms, the way that we are normalizing psychopathy. Celebrity is such a great example. I went sideways with the bands, but then even there was this celebrity, and I won't name her because I'm not dumb and I don't feel like having to deal with legal stuff because they're also fragile in the ego. But there's a celebrity, and it is unfortunate. Her spouse took their own life. And she's talking about her grief process and what have you. And this particular celebrity, and this is sad, I need to be clear. This particular celebrity is known for her sort of mean girl persona, just her very deadpan lack of empathy. And people would say, oh, well, that's just a character, etc. But it just goes so deep into the psychology, like, of celebrity. We are paying and idolizing people to not necessarily know who they are, pretending it's storytelling, and a lot of times we aren't even actually developing plots, as in breaking down how characters came to the deductions. It's strange to me how we have turned art, as in the ability to interpret, into such a lack of responsibility of how interpretation can be applied. I.e., just nuance. We lose sight of that. What is the difference between a generalization and a generality? Well, I may venture that it is the perspective, the point of view, and the state of the person receiving. Because again, if I say, and Eli Wiesel has a great quote, that we shouldn't make generalizations, and I'm not going to paraphrase right now. But essentially, if I say, all rabid dogs bite, we could generalize and assume that I'm so stupid as to think that every single dog that has rabies will try to bite you, right? But doesn't that inadvertently out our own intelligence if we choose to believe that versus question? And maybe say, now what I'm hearing is that perhaps you think every single dog that has rabies bites. Is that what you're saying? So I guess, please, enlighten me. Is it because they have rabies? Is it because they're dogs? Etc. We live in a clickbait, one-size-fits-all, support my narrative, TikTok, modern society. Time is money. Quick. Quick is not quality. I'm older. I remember when cell phones first came out, and, you could get a charger and a faceplate and covers. And it's strange how we have tilted that narrative and that perspective that quality now is to spend more money, but to maybe have to get special iBuds, earphones, chargers that don't adapt. Not looking at any particular company. All of it. Capitalism. The fact that we truly keep telling ourselves that this needs to be the way that it is, when so few benefit. And I guess if they were benefiting, what are they doing with the good that they receive? So how does it benefit? Strange times. Very strange times. And I just know that I'm no longer going to act like it's normal to ignore that people are suffering and dying on the streets so that we can elevate other people to high fashion. And, oh, they're so much cooler than this, and blah, blah, blah. Nah. Janitors on the street, like street sweepers, janitors, stalkers at Kroger, are more intrinsic to this farce of art and storytelling. I saw a video of two celebrities talking about how important their show was because of how it's so relatable to people. Except, again, quick comedy bits that distract you from your suffering and bring joy for a minute, but that you have to pay money to when you work a job that you're not happy necessarily for, just to feel like you're keeping up with everybody else, to feel like you're relating, and this is relating, except it's not actually relating because these are people that are paid to pretend this and apply what they think is real life application without actually thinking deeply, because they're not taught to think deeply. They're taught to perform and play act. Why are we idolizing this? And it's such a bitter pill to swallow, because Socrates, thousands of years ago, one of the modern founders of philosophy, quite literally was, well, it's not that he was sentenced to death. To be fair, speaking of narcissism and ego, but I get it, you have to stand on your principles. He chose to drink hemlock as opposed to admit that he was corrupting the youth of Athens. And I just want to say, thousands of years later, I stand with Socrates, because he wasn't corrupting the youth of Athens. He was teaching them to think. He was talking about how democracy, be it left, right, blue, red, up, down, they're not actually thinking of everyone overall. They're only thinking of the like them, which inherently already tells you that they are, we'll say, that they're not good, bad. And then it goes into depths of morality and what have you. This is why I read the Bible, because to be completely honest with you, if we had any great structures in society, we would have eradicated homelessness and poverty. We think that we're better than animals. Animals don't lord it over you. It's not like you don't see two lions competing for resources. Oh, you're weak, bro. You're weak, simp. Oh, you're a loser. You can't fight, right? Not to be rude. Literally, it's kill or be killed. And even in instances, funnily enough, we watch nature videos. That's not even always the case. Animals will implore empathy that human beings aren't necessarily showing themselves capable of. They will feed other species. They'll incorporate when someone is perhaps beaten in a test of strength. They'll maybe banish to allow that animal the opportunity to go and forage and thrive. And yet here we are as humans. Most complex animal because we're so smart and we think and blah, blah, blah. And yet we fight. Well, I need more money than you because I make better choices and I'm successful and that makes me strong, and you're a loser because you didn't cope well and you make bad choices and this is how you thrive. I guess that's why I follow Jesus, because he said governments, religion, truly read your Bibles if you're so inclined. Get to know the Word of God, not to sound too corny. Jesus wasn't about that. And so funnily enough, I've gone to many churches. I go to churches constantly. I talk to different priests and theologians, and it breaks my heart, to be completely honest with you, because they seem so lost. But it actually talks about that in the scripture too. I don't know why I went to necessarily make this or how I turn this into a God thing. But if all else fails, I might suggest, if perhaps you're reading the scripture, don't look at it like a history book, and it doesn't claim to be. And it was actually even observed that Jesus spoke in parables. Look at it as a critical thought assignment. In fact, funnily enough, like, there are scriptures that speak to it. The book of Luke is a great one, making the unknown known to you, etc. As in, you have to do the research. You can't necessarily know. Ecclesiastes is a great one, where it just the book that kind of gives us a slap in the face. Like, so many people are gonna be aware they're just not gonna do it. King Solomon, he was wise. And not to get too weird for it, because again, I don't want to be like, Jesus loves you and is touching you, because it's not about that specifically. It's just, I've been sitting with the Bible, so I think that, and honestly, I'm looking at a Bible right next to me, so it just keeps screaming at me, if I'm being completely honest with you. And that's probably my note that I should wrap it up, because I'm getting super, super distracted. But I do want to tie back, because I remember why I mentioned it. The 12 judges, right? In the Bible. The 12 cranial nerves. The 7 seals. The 7 chakras. If we perhaps look at this, again, people think of like, choose the right side of the brain, the side of consciousness that has to do with peace, love, understanding. And again, by all means, please don't take my word for it, because at the end of the day, I can only speak to you as I interpret it. And hopefully something maybe resonates and you want to research it yourself. Our follows, Phil, thanks for just sitting and spending a moment with me. Like I said, I've been wanting to pop on for a bit. Got in a car accident, dealing with the transition of a loved one. There's a lot. And then on top of that, real life, working, etc. And then interpersonal dynamics are the people that I choose to align with. So I'm loving you this day and always. And it's not like I'm trying to be the next YouTube star. I'm just trying to show you something so different. We don't need to talk about famous people and self-serving meals and all of these things that, as far as I see it, continue to enslave us. Because we're pretty freaking awesome. But the only way to get to that is to get through how much we suck. And I don't mean that meanly. I'm literally from personal experience. I look back, again, narcissism. I think back to a Mother's Day years ago, where because I was a mom and somebody was mowing their lawn at like 8:30, which I still stand on is kind of early on a Mother's Day weekend, to be completely honest with you. I posted about it on social media. And I was just like, God, how inconsiderate. And a friend of mine commented, like, maybe you're just a biddy, as in B word rhymes with itch, snitch. And I said, maybe I am, but I'm still a mom on this recognized day, and it irritates me. And again, clearly you are seeing something of me saying this, but I'm just venting a moment. And I'm glad, that I didn't get so, like, lost in my rocker, like, oh my God, how dare you call me on my bull crap. But in hindsight, I'm glad that she did that, because while it didn't necessarily hit me then that I was being slightly narcissistic, making it all about me, even though there is truth that it might be slightly early on a Mother's Day weekend, it's good sometimes to be reminded of how we can show up better, because it starts with us. And trust me, I love you to pieces, but if you think that you are showing up the best that you can, as best as you can always, and you're mindful of it at least, baby, lie to yourself all you want. Please don't lie to me. And I guess that's why at this point it's a one-sided narrative, but I mean, I guess you can comment if you want. I like to engage. I love people. Anywho, I'm loving you this day and always, and I thank you for sharing some of your time with me, helping me co-create, and honestly just bearing witness to me in my own healing process, because as I've said, I'm not trying to pull hairs. I'm at a place of come up, what the Tower calls Jerome moments, where you've just been knocked on your ass and you're back on that upward climb, and we choose how and what we do with that. And this is just a different way. So let's keep changing the world.